If you do all of those things, I think you can be whoever the fuck you want to be in like 18 months. Hey guys, welcome back to Be the Standard. I'm your host, Denny Jamazzo. As always, here with my best friend and co-host, Mike Burns. We're going to start today's show off a little bit differently. A couple weeks ago, you probably noticed that I put out a Q&A on my page as well as the Be the Standard Instagram page. And I have some questions from that Mike and I are going to address. And from there, a lot of things we talk about on this podcast are personal growth. So we're going to go over some of the different individual characteristics of that and how you go about just growing personally and professionally and just being better, the best version of you that you can be. So to kick it off with the very first question, all right. And I'm not going to be throwing people's names out there because I haven't asked permission or been given permission or anything like that. So in the future, if I get that type of permission granted, I'll do that. But for now, these are anonymous, even though I know exactly who sent them. So the first one, and I'm going to let you handle this one or answer this one first, and then we'll kind of do like a back and forth. But what is one of your biggest failures, and how did you bounce back?
Biggest failures?
Yeah.
What would you constitute a failure? And that's not me trying to cop out.
That's fine. Something that maybe, because I'm going to answer this question as well, and I'm still not sure how.
Yeah.
But I would say maybe something that you either attempted and didn't succeed at, but maybe you learned from. Because in my opinion, a lot of times when it comes to just failure, I don't think you really fail until you quit. Right? Because you can attempt something multiple times and you hear it from entrepreneurs all the time about, maybe you started a business and, it wasn't really heading in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So you pivoted with your business and went in another direction with it or a different idea or whatever, but ultimately became successful. So you didn't fail, right?
Right.
And again, that failure looks different for everybody. You know, so I get your challenge there. Challenging that question.
So I would label a failure. So let me just and I'll answer your question. But I would label a failure as like if I failed myself somehow, like compromise myself, or that would be a failure. Mm-hmm. Like you just said, if I started something and it failed, as long as I grew from it, that's not a failure. So I'm going to go with that, the latter on that one, because like obviously we know recently. I'll just go with the recent one. I don't care anymore. I'm going to put it out there.
Sure.
Is the Worcester gym that I did. I started last year. Really got it going last year, but it was like 2.5 years in the making. That did not go the way I wanted it to, obviously, just because me and the partner that I had, and, different. I'll just keep it simple. I'll just keep it, civil. Just different views and just different personalities, and something I didn't want to be tethered to long term. So I'm out of that, and I lost everything. I put all my savings into it. Well, even though I don't have a huge savings, but I put everything I had into it. I put my gym, which, CrossFit Rail Trail, which is my baby. I kind of put that, I wouldn't say in the back burner, but, wasn't in the forefront. So I had other people try to run that for me. I was only supposed to be away from it for a little bit. That did not happen. I was away from it for a lot of it. So that would be, that part of it, I think, is a failure probably, because I did not want that to happen. I learned a lot from it. Man, did I learn. Man, have I grown from that. So I can't say this has been a failure just because I lost money and it didn't go the way initially it was planned. So I would say that would be the best example, of coming out of that. It's not completely done yet, but I'm putting the closing touches on that chapter and moving on. So, yeah. And if I ever wanted to do something like that again, I'd know exactly how to do it, exactly what to do, what not to do, who to do it with, who to partner with, and all these things, right? So it's been a great. It's funny to say this, but it was a great experience. In the end, I'm looking at it like it's not over yet, so let me hold my tongue. But it's like I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I learned from it, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I'm no longer a part of it. Mm-hmm. That makes sense?
Yeah. That's a great answer, and I'm glad you went with that one because it is so recent, and I've been, kind of by your side, trying to just be a good friend through all of that. And
hearing me vent about it all the time.
But you know what? That's what I'm here for, and that's what I'm supposed to do as your friend. In I agree with you in the sense of what failure looks like and sounds like and feels like and like acts like. And I agree that, or my thing is that, I think you fail when you quit, and I think you fail when you compromise your personal values and your belief system and kind of go against those things that really are important to you. And I think everybody at some point, whether the world knows about it or your friends know about it or whatever, I think everybody does it. I think we've all done it. I think everybody has their demons and their shit, is what I say. Right. But for me, I mean, you were right there when I made probably my biggest mistake. And I'll just use a career example. And that's, I've told this story, I think, once on another podcast or whatnot. But when I was in the Army and we deployed overseas, I used a buddy's address so that I could get more money in BAH. So for those of you listening and don't understand, when you deploy in the Guard or whatnot, you get paid a certain amount for your housing allowance based off of your zip code and where you live. I felt that, hey, what the hell? I'm going overseas. I'm going to, try to make as much money as I can because God knows if I'm going to make it back or not. And that was kind of my mentality. So what I did was I used a friend's address to make a few extra bucks on the deployment. I think it really wasn't that substantial. Now that I look back at it, it definitely wasn't worth it. But, I learned a valuable lesson there. Hey, look, you could have told me anything when I was 25 years old. It doesn't mean I was going to listen to you. But yeah, no, it was just one of those things where, and I'm going to be perfectly frank on this, I'm not sure how I feel about it as far as whether or not it was a real integrity violation or makes me a bad guy or anything like that. It's one of those things where the Army had a policy, they had a rule, and I said, I don't agree with it, and I went against it. And I recently explained this to a good friend of ours. We were talking about it, and I told him the same exact thing, and he agreed. He's like, "Look, man, you broke a rule. You didn't break, who you are as a person and your integrity and all of that." And that's kind of how I view it now. But I remember at the time just being like, "Oh man, I'm this bad guy. I stole money from the government, right? Which it was about $600 a month, which I did pay back. But ultimately, that was just something that really stuck with me and that bothered me a lot. And because it did have somewhat of an impact on not my career, but perception by certain people, and not within our command. Right up the chain, I think at least through this first sergeant. He seemed to have my back, seemed to be okay with, hey, you fucked up, like, you idiot. Like, so I never really felt that way within our unit, but, just sometimes you're just hardest on yourself and you create this like vision of like maybe what other people are thinking about you. And it's really probably not anywhere nearly as bad as you think it is.
I don't think it ever is. Yeah.
Right. And that's one of the things. I know you're this type of guy as well, where, I'm just way harder on myself than anybody is ever going to be on me. So I always am just beating the shit out of myself when I make just the smallest mistake. And that's something that I think I've gotten better at now, with just allowing myself that little bit of grace to just be like, hey, and this is something we say all the time, or I see it a lot, is if you made the same mistake that I made, I'd be like, Mike, come on, man, you're fine. Like, you're a good dude. Like, it's not a big deal. And vice versa. Because and my point with that is, you need to learn to be that better friend to yourself and be kinder with your words to yourself and talk to yourself the way you would talk to others, and just be better in that regard.
That's probably the best way to do it, though. Treat yourself as though you would treat others, your good friends. The same advice applies to yourself. But hardly anyone ever does it, but if it's a good way to look at it, I mean, it's you, But you hold yourself to but you hold yourself to a higher standard than you do anybody else.
Yeah, and frankly, I think you should. Are you really accountable if other people are holding you to a higher standard and you're not doing it for yourself, right? I think those standards and things of that nature should be set by you. So that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But here's one. I could probably lead with this one, but how were you able to use your childhood traumas as fuel, quote, to be better?
So I can't say, like I said, we talked about this last episode. I don't have any traumas per se. I mean, you know.
I mean, even hardships. Like, how do you use your hardships? Like, how did that help to shape you?
Put it. Yeah, so
they framed the question, they put traumas, and I think that might have been more directed at like my childhood shit. But so, yeah. For you, maybe just for context, you could just use, because things weren't easy.
Yeah, no, of course not. Hardships, yeah, you definitely. I think you can definitely go one or two ways with hardships, right? Like a lot of people that I grew up with went one way, and very few go the way that I went. And you use them to be like, hey, I don't want to be this way. Don't pick up the behaviors that I see around me. Don't be a product of your environment, right? A lot of people are. Like it's very hard to get out of. And I almost did. Like we talked about that last episode. I almost kind of fell into that till I got away from the environment that I was in. But I've always used, the hardship of, not having much growing up and being extremely grateful for everything that I get. You know what I mean? So everything I get and got or have in life, obviously now I give the glory to God. But you look back and it's like, man, like I would never take it for granted. There's never been a day. There's never been a day I've ever looked at anything I had and been like, man, I like you can want more. That's not what I'm saying, but I've never been like not content with what I have. You know what I'm saying? Or very grateful for what I have.
Yeah.
And I think that's because of the way you grew up. Nothing was given to me. Nothing was handed to me. You had to work for everything. So.
Yeah, no, and that's a good answer to the question. I can definitely relate to that. And, one of the things I always told myself when it came to even my traumas, right, if you want to call it that or whatever, was...
It's pretty traumatic though, Dan.
Yeah. It was, and I probably shouldn't try to sidestep it like that, right? It definitely was. But, I think one of the things I always told myself, and I've said this before, is there's always someone that has it worse. Always, 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 always. There's somebody that has it worse, and they've come back stronger, and they've done more with less. That's one of my favorite things.
I just got to cut you off there. Like, that's okay to use that, which I think just in the context that you did, but don't ever use it to diminish what you've gone through. You know what I mean? People do that a lot. Like, someone's always gone through worse, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. This isn't anything. I shouldn't feel this way. Like, no, that's not true. Yeah. Like, it's okay to everything's relative, and there's always going to be someone who's gone through it worse. But if you just use it in the context that you did, they got through it, I can get through this too. That's a good context.
And I think to answer that question is that's kind of how I've used it as fuel, is to be like, you know what, if somebody else can get through X, Y, and Z, then I can as well. I've always kind of had that mentality, whether it was a school for the military, whether it was this or that. If somebody else has done it, I don't see an excuse as to why I can't.
Yep.
But just trauma in general, I met a guy earlier this week. His name's Trevor Beeman. He's a former Green Beret. Great guy. He's got a book coming out very soon, I think in the fall, maybe next month. But, him and I sat here and talked for maybe an hour and a half and got to, right away just clicked. And the way he talked about trauma was just awesome. And it was like, you don't get your traumas, they never go away. They're not gone. You're not going to deal with them in the sense that they're gone forever. It's just being able to, do the right things as far as getting therapy, getting help, talking about your traumas, and understanding that, they're going to be there forever. They don't go away. And anybody who tells you, in my opinion, that, your traumas at some point or whatever just leave or go away, and there's nothing you can say that convince me that that's true.
I'm not sure if anyone's ever really said that, though.
I don't think so. I'm just saying. I'm just saying for general context. Like if I heard somebody say that, I'd be like, no freaking way. Yeah. Like I just don't. But one of the other things he said that I loved and I've done as well is when he was going through selection for the Q course at SFAS, Special Forces Assessment and Selection, he would think of his traumas and kind of use it to get through some of those hard things and. Physically, mentally, and, when those things would be over, you'd be like, fuck yeah, like, what are we doing next? And this is the shit I'm pulling from his book. I'm about halfway through it, and it's a hell of a read. And Trevor Beeman's his name, and I would just say, look for him. He's coming. Um, he's a good dude. He was actually Nick Lavery's dive instructor at dive school when he went through that course for special operations. So, but yeah, no, as far as traumas, just understand that they're not going anywhere. You just got to find a way to deal with them, because if you don't, that stuff, it follows you into your adulthood. It affects, all the relationships that you have. It certainly did for me, affecting the relationships that I had. And yeah, so I would just go with that. I was able to use it as fuel to be better, because my understanding was that somebody else always had it worse, and that's kind of just always been my approach. And again, like you said, that's not the only way to look at it, but in that context, that's how I use it to stay stronger and reach my objectives.
Nice.
Yeah. This one's pretty cool because, as anybody's listening, they know that like I've been relatively, I don't think hard, but maybe a little hard on the law enforcement community as far as fitness and standards and all of that. And I'm the same way with fire and military. And I think there's a certain standard that we should, uphold. If you're going to be in those professions, to be in a particular, physical condition. And so I'm going to turn this one over to you right away after I ask it. But I want to start working out again. I'm not sure where to start. I'm a full-time dad, work as a police officer, struggle with time and balance.
So
how would he start?
Just start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get up earlier. Get up that 1 hour earlier or half hour. So this is where I think people go wrong, right? They go from, especially in this guy, we know how busy police officers work. They got to work. For those of you guys don't realize why cops work all these details and overtimes, they don't get paid a lot, right? And in order to support a family, they have to work details and overtimes, and that just burns them out. And then now he's a family on top of that. I'm sure time is very minimal. So what he's got to do is really just he's going to have to put away some time for himself. You got to prioritize the time. You got to look at yourself as not like I come last, because your family needs you, your department needs you. So you need to prioritize yourself and find that time right away. So if that's even getting up a half hour earlier and going for a walk, do that 30-minute walk for 5 days a week, 3 days a week, 4 days a week, just to get moving. Once you start getting in motion, you're going to start doing more. So you just start with that. What I see people do is they try to go from 0 to 100. Like, I'm going from no workout. I'm not working out. I'm not eating right. I'm not doing all these things. And they jump into something like 75 hard, right? Like, that is a great program for people that have been doing, like, I believe, this is my personal opinion. And so take it for what it is. I know Andy Frisella probably won't like this, but somebody going from the couch to that isn't going to benefit, because you might do it, but once the 75 days is up, what did you actually keep with you? Well, a lot of people, once they hit the finish line, it's like, I made it, woohoo, and then it's all goes away. So anyways, I don't want to get off topic. So you want to start making habits. Those habits become just part of what you do. It just become your lifestyle, but you got to just start one at a time. So just really, I would get up and be like, all right, this is my time. For one, just know this, I need this time for me. And a lot of people in law enforcement, and dads and all that stuff, they always put everything first, but you got to realize, like, if you can't put yourself first, you can't do the best for them and for your community and for everything you're doing. So you got to look and say, hey, I need to do this. If this is how you need to say it to yourself, be like, I'm giving this time for me, for them, right? That's how you can look at it, because it might drive you a little more. And get up that half hour earlier, an hour, whatever you can do, right? And just walk for 30 minutes. Do that for a week. Then maybe you start running, or you start doing weights, whatever it is, just start moving. And then you're going to want to start doing more. And then you start layering stuff on top of that, on top of that, on top of that. And definitely find a support system, right? If you don't have anybody out there, reach out to me. I'll be a support system, but just because it's important. That's why people, I'm not going to do a plug here, but I am. CrossFit communities are very important, because what I like about them, because you get that group accountability. And if you're part of a good gym, you're going to get that individual accountability from the coaches as well. So it's good to have that. Set some time aside. Just start. That's it. And then from there, it'll build, and then you can come, like I said, reach out to somebody. It doesn't have to be me. Maybe you never want to do CrossFit or any functional fitness. That's fine. I know it works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. Find somebody. Find somebody's in a space that you like, enjoy, and then start asking them.
Yeah, I don't even know if or how to contribute to that. I mean, you said basically everything I would say. The only thing I would say is, I think you probably need total maybe 2 hours to start anyways, maybe 2 hours a week to work out 4 times, 30 minutes, get your heart rate up a little bit. And, maybe this is just me and how I think, but I think that once you start to do it and you start to like feel different and you start to, maybe you tie diet into that as well, and you're eating better, you're feeling better.
That will come. So yeah, I meant to bring that up. So once you start moving, you're going to want to start eating better.
Yes.
But don't try both at the same time.
Yep.
Eliminate sugar. That you should do right away, in my opinion. Sugar is just really going to bring you down. But definitely don't try. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
If you don't want to try to do both at the same time, if you're really struggling to get going, you don't want to think diet and exercise, start moving. That's your exercise.
Yeah.
And then you're going to want to start eating better. Then you can start looking at your diet and then be realistic. Like, there's a lot of misinformation out there. Be careful where you get it from. Go to someone reputable, right? Bottom line, you don't have to do anything fancy, right? It really is about controlling how many calories you have when it comes down to it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because diet is very important, but just start moving. You're going to want to start eating better, then start eating better, and then again, start layering it. Don't go crazy on this, this crazy challenge, because then you don't develop the habits. Once you do things long enough, it becomes a habit, then it becomes part of you. If you do it for a challenge, there's a finish line in your mind. And once you hit that finish line, you lose it all. Yeah. You know what I mean? For most people, not everybody, but for most people, they lose it all. So try to make it about you, and just try to develop these habits. But yeah, the diet is huge, but start moving first.
I'm glad you put it that way, because like when you do it long enough and you just get started, you just start getting moving. Like you said, it becomes a lifestyle, as opposed to like seeing that finish line and, just doing it for this duration of time.
Yep.
And another thing with the dieting and the nutrition, I prefer to call it, is
nutrition. Perfect.
I've been working out for 22 years.
Can I stop you there?
And
put a pin in it. I don't want to.
Go ahead.
He's so pissed. The diet, I love that you said that, because diet, what does diet mean?
I don't know.
It's temporary.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, no.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
Sorry, man.
That's fine. Just don't do it again. But no, I'm glad you made the point about just it becoming a part of your lifestyle, as opposed to just you diet, you do this, and it goes away. But I've been working out for 22 years, and I'm still like that. Like if I'm eating well, it's when I'm working out. If I'm not working out, I'm eating like shit too. It's like those two things. Like if I'm on vacation and I'm working out, like my diet or nutrition is still somewhat intact. I mean, I'm still enjoying other things, but it's still somewhat intact. But if I'm not working out on vacation and I'm just one of those vacations where I'm just chilling, I'm also eating like shit. So those two things is exercise and nutrition go hand in hand. And I also love the point about just not diving in and starting off slow. And again, I think 2 hours a week is plenty to at least to start, because then you're just going to naturally want more, because you're going to start seeing results. All right. I think we hit that one pretty good.
Pretty good.
Next one. What influenced you guys to start a podcast? All right.
So I'm going to turn this over to Denny pretty quick. I'm just going to, because this is his baby, and I'm just blessed to be along for the ride. But I've always wanted to do this. Den is the only one of I've talked about this stuff for years. Is just because this is so beneficial for even me, like just to do a podcast. But even if it reaches one person, but Denny, we'll turn it over, because I don't have much to say on this. He started this. This is his baby, and I'm just glad to be along for the ride.
Yeah. So basically the way it started was I kind of wanted to get my story out there. I wanted to talk a little bit about the things I've experienced and kind of where I come from to where I am. And hopefully, that would resonate with some people and help some people. But I wasn't sure about going out, how I was going to go about doing that. And the initial thing I came up with was like, poof, I'll write a book. And then I still wasn't sure if I wanted to do that or any idea how to go about doing this. So I reached out to Bedros Koulian. I DM'd him and was just like, hey, man, I have a story that I think is worth sharing. And, I'm thinking about writing a book. I'm thinking about, maybe a podcast or whatever. And he gave me, I was shocked he responded, but he did. And he'll still respond from time to time if I reach out or comment on a post or something. But good dude. And he responded and said that, put the book on the shelf for now. Just do the podcast, put your information out there, turn it into a discussion, and put out what he called killer content on YouTube. So being a guy worth $200 million, I thought it might be worth taking his advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did that. And I didn't want to go at it alone. I wanted to kind of just do this experience with somebody because I knew I'd be talking about things that you and I talked about anyways. Mm-hmm. Things that are important to both of us, things that we've discussed in bar settings, in gym settings, and
everywhere.
These are the conversations we have all the time. Yep. And I think it's stuff that's relatable, and I think that the conversations we have echo the conversations that a lot of people are looking to have, if not already having. So that's how the podcast got started, was just me trying to get my story out there and share it with others and hopefully have a positive impact on other people. And I'm happy to say that 6 months in, only 6 months in, we've, I think, had just an awesome impact on our viewership and the people that we're looking to connect with are connecting with us. And, I've said it before, but when somebody shares a story with me, their story, and I get them all the time now, mm-hmm. It's humbling. And I get messages about, I have a list of probably 25 people that want to come on the podcast. You got to pick your spots with who and when you have them on, but it's just humbling that people want to be a part of, the things that we're talking about, be the standard, and, they're buying our stuff online and really engaging with us, and, we have their questions. And so mm-hmm. it's, again, we're only 6 months in, and I couldn't be more shocked, surprised, and happy.
It's only been 6 months.
Right?
I feel like we've been doing this a long time.
Well, I think it feels that way. It definitely feels longer to me because, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It is a lot of work.
You're doing a lot of work, bro.
People think just, oh, look, a microphone. Oh, look, a computer. It's not that. Oh, look, a camera.
That's what I thought.
It's not. Yeah. No. And there's way more that goes into it if you want to do it the right way.
Yep.
I mean, if you want to do a podcast and just sit in your kitchen with a camera and a microphone or just, do it on Zoom, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. I think it's less impactful, and I think people have less of an interest in that type of a presentation visually. So I wanted to do it like this. I wanted to do it better in more of like a studio setting, and I just thought it would be better. And I think that maybe that's part of the reason why we've seen the influx in participation, if you will, from mm-hmm. our viewers. So.
So keep with that. We had Jeff sitting over there. How did Jeff become involved in all this?
I think I initially reached out to Jeff because I wanted to do a photo shoot for us, and we did the photo shoot mm-hmm. At your gym, and not
my gym anymore, but yeah,
the old gym, the shitty one. No, we did the photo shoot, and Jeff and I were just talking more about the podcast part of it, and he wanted to be a part of it. Am I wrong? No, he wanted to be a part of it, and with open arms, absolutely. Thank God he's a part of it. He's a huge integral part of it, by the way. Actually, definitely by the end of the year, he's going to be a guest. I'm going to make him be a guest on the podcast because, we really can't do what we're doing without his help. So I'm just grateful. Incredibly grateful for Jeff helping us out and doing what he does. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so that's how all of this came about, and this little 3-man team right here is incredible. I wouldn't change it for anything. I love it. So appreciate that. Next question. What do you like to do in your free time? You guys can do better than that.
Yeah. All right. So free time.
Just joking, by the way. We'll tell you.
Yeah. Free time. I mean, just all the things, and I know people are going to give me crap like you're lying, but I'm being very sincere that all the things I do, I love to do. Right. So, free time, like maybe it's Netflix.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I love being a firefighter. I love having the gym, and I love being in the military. Like there's not one day that I'm like, man, I got to go do that today. Not one time am I like that for any of them. So I'm blessed with that. So all the things I do to keep myself busy with, I love to do. I would spend my free time doing all of that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So maybe, taking a Netflix series that, Bella, my stepdaughter probably recommends. She's usually spot on. So she'll recommend something. Hey, Mike, watch this. And I'll be like, this is kind of stupid.
Yeah.
And then I'll watch the entire thing. So.
Yeah. No. So for me, it's I'm like that too. Like I feel like I only do things I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my free time, I'm always having fun. Right. I love to golf.
So golf.
Golf is my thing. I don't do it nearly as much this year as I did last year and previous years, but just with everything, I'm so busy now. But I love to play golf. It's competitive for me. It's hard as hell. It makes me think. It makes me maintain control of my emotions, which honestly I do a better job of that here than I do on the golf course. But I try, right? So, but it translates to so many things that golf does, I think. So I really enjoy that. And then like yourself, I love to just chill. And, I don't get a lot of chill time because I'm either writing the book or whatever, preparing for the podcast, or working or whatever. But when I get time at night to watch Netflix, I love Suits. That's my show right
That's
now.
the one I'm on right now,
Oh,
actually.
it's so good.
And Bella recommended it.
Yeah.
So.
That's so good. I've watched the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. I told you he's my idol, my childhood idol. I've watched that like 4 times. Love it. I can't get enough of just the type of person he is. So I love watching that. But yeah, just chilling and watching Netflix is fun. Walking my dog is fun. Those are the types of things I do. But all right, next question, Mike. What do you love most about being a firefighter?
Most love. I don't know. I'll just say what I love about it. I can't really put one in particular order, but kind of touched on it last episode. Really, just love being around like-minded people that share the same values and want to serve. You serve a community and give back. So. But I guess I would say love about it is you just never know what you're gonna get, mm-hmm. right? You just never know. You could get the medical, you can get the ones that always come in. It's a nuisance. You got some nuisance medicals, but then you got some real calls where if you weren't there, who knows what would happen. So you're getting called to someone's worst day, and mm-hmm. you're trying to make it better. And when you're able to do that. That is probably the most rewarding thing. So that I would say is the best. Fighting fires obviously is fun, mm-hmm. but the best part is being able to. So let me put that into context. People are like, what do you mean it's fun? So we never want anyone's house to go on fire, right? But if it does happen, we want to be the ones to go there and save it and put it out, right? So that's what we mean by fun. It's never fun to watch somebody's property get damaged or lose. It's their worst day of their life. So that's not what I mean. So let me watch how I say that because I know people will probably comment on that. But it's just whatever you train for. Think about that. Anything in life, you train to do a certain task. And then when you're able to do that, you want to do it as best as possible. So there's a context for that. But I think it's more rewarding when you actually same context, you're able to save that person's property. You're able to save that person's life. You're able to make that person's life better. You're able to intervene at a time where that if it wasn't for you being there or us intervening, things could have gone a different way. So that is probably my favorite part about being a firefighter.
Yeah, and it's funny. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that just because like you said, if you train to do anything, you want to do that job. Mm-hmm. It's like being overseas. Yep. You, in the middle of a firefight, you're like, this sucks. I just want it to end and get out okay. But afterwards, you're like, that was fucking awesome. Yeah. Right? I got to do my job. This is what we trained for. This is what we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And that was fucking great. But you don't wish for it. You don't wish to, inflict that, or administer that pain and you don't wish to receive it yourself, but you've trained to do it and you want to know what it's like to do it and be tested in that environment.
Right.
So totally understand what you meant when you said I love fighting fires.
Yeah, but sometimes people don't, so I had to clarify.
No, and I don't think it'd be a sick thing for somebody to be like, yeah, I love fighting fires because I get to watch somebody's property burn.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think I'd be hard pressed to probably find any firefighter in the history of firefighting, where people got into that profession for that reason, I would hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's anything like that where you're helping people, I think is awesome. And that was a great answer as far as like, that's the best part of the job. So I like that. So I feel like that most of those questions were kind of softball questions, and the next two I think are a little bit more hard, more difficult to answer, and going to require a little bit more thought for both of us. But
so just people know, like I have no idea what these questions are. Denny's had these questions, so I've
had them, and two of them actually just came recently, like within the last hour.
All right, so that's okay. So we didn't know.
A couple of the, like I don't even have, these last two for sure. I definitely don't have any type of context. I'm shooting from the hip, just like he is. But if you could pass along a message of advice to yourself at 25, what would it be?
25. Now I got to remember what I was doing at 25. The message. That's a great question. So I would say this, because I know, like I said, I've talked about, probably at that age I was still I definitely know I was very angry. Not very angry. Let me clarify. Maybe just too serious. Everything was like, I just had a certain personality to me, right? I would say lighten up, maybe, like not lighten up. That's a good question, Denny. Because it just naturally happened as you grow, right? So, but I guess the advice would be, things don't need to be this difficult. Don't make things so difficult for yourself. Just like you said, I was definitely my own worst critic, especially back then. Oh man, and you don't want negative self-talk. So I would just say, yeah, like, give yourself a little more grace. Have more grace with other people, and really realize how you come off to people, right? I don't think, even back then, I had any idea how I came off to people sometimes, and I think you got to have more situational awareness. So that's a horrible answer, but that's my answer.
No, it's not, because the better advice you can give to a younger generation, especially like if they're, I think about the just in that question, the 25-year-old me that's out there, that really isn't sure what the hell they're doing, or could really use some advice, right? Like I feel like since I was 25, I mean, that was almost 17 years ago now, and things are just different. Now the information's out there. You can try to follow people like us, follow people like a Nick Lavery or whoever, and you really can get some great nuggets in there that you can implement into your life. And if the younger you do it, the better. You might not transform as a person and just be entirely different, but with enough of that and enough research or education or effort and training that you put into yourself, you never know. I was 23 when I joined the Army, and I've said it before that I'm a totally different person because of that experience. And that was 23, so call this 25. There's still so much time to change and be better. But what I would go back and tell myself is to care less what people think, and have a little bit more confidence in yourself and in what you're capable of, and don't be afraid to push yourself in a harder direction. And when I joined the Guard, it was the only reason I didn't join active duty was because I was like, I'm not really that sure, but maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. So if I get in the Guard or go in the Guard, then I'll only have to do it part-time, and then I'll just get out, right? Then I get in the Guard and I'm like, shit, like I would have really liked to do this full-time. And I've talked about that journey and how difficult that was. So my advice to myself then would have been, fuck it, go all in. Take a huge risk on yourself. Bet on yourself every time, regardless of what you think the odds are. And I think that that's the best way to really pull out, your potential and the things that you bring to the table. And yeah, that's what I would say, because there were even times where I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't think I was, skilled enough and in good enough shape or whatever. But having that confidence and that belief system in yourself that you can do those things, I think is, that's going to be paramount to getting you to any level that you want to get to. And I'm doing it now. I'm 41 years old at, starting a podcast and, wanting to do certain things like write a book. And now I'm a guest speaker and the podcast and, these opportunities that are now presenting themselves. I mean, shit, if I just had this confidence in myself 5, 6 years ago, it is what it is. I don't have any regrets, but, yeah, just stop. I think it's key to not place these self-imposed limitations on yourself, and really just believe that what you have to offer is genuine, sincere, and valuable.
I need to modify my answer now. You really brought something that I think was probably one of the best things I learned from a mentor. It just clicked that one time. But first I want to highlight what you said before I get into that one is not caring what people think. When you can truly do that as soon as you can in life, that is huge. A lot of people say it, especially in their 20s. Oh, I don't care. Yes, you do. Shut up.
It's when you care the most.
You definitely care a lot. You know what I mean? You can tell me how tough, like, you can give that tough guy, I don't care what people think. Bullshit. But when you get older to my age, I truly don't care. You know what I mean? And I don't know when I did that, but that's a good one. Like, if you can truly be about things for you and don't care, because people are always going to try to keep you down, especially if you're doing big things that they're not doing. They're going to be like, what are you, stupid? What are you doing? That's stupid. And then try to talk you out of it. All right. But I want to get to the point where a mentor told me, and probably the biggest single piece of advice I ever got from him, and I implemented it, and the sooner I could give myself at 25 years old is probably a great time to do it, or sooner, is I used to always overthink things, right? And let me get what I meant by that. So I'd be like, all right, if this thing happens, then this might happen, then this might happen, then this might happen. And guess what I do? I do nothing. I didn't take action ever. You know what I mean? On things. And then I remember asking this guy, mentor of mine in all senses of life, and I was like, hey, he applied for this job. He had no credentials in. It was a pretty cool job in the military. And I was like, you just went there and just went for it. Like, you just interviewed for the job. I was like, yep. I was like, well, how did you do that? Why did you do that? He's just like, everyone uses the example like, you jump and you grow wings on the way down. He didn't say it like that. He said it like, you just jump in to a situation and you will figure it out. And I was like, wow. I was like, it really struck me. And from that day on, maybe not that day, but like pretty close on around that time, I really took that to heart and I started doing that. I was like, you know what? Let me just put myself in this situation and see it, and you always will figure it out. That's so true. You will figure it out. And if you do that sooner in life, like you said, take those risks, just put yourself in a position, you will figure it out.
Oh yeah.
So that's my answer right there. The other one I said before, I was hard because I couldn't think of it, but once I heard you talk, that's because I've used this before. I've said this before, and I've said it to this guy. Like, that is the single best piece of advice I've ever gotten. I would give it to myself as soon as I could.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I that's what I'm doing right now with this podcast. It's like I didn't have a clue really how to go about doing it. I didn't really have a clue how to, market it or get a following, and what are people going to think and all that stuff. And it was like, you know what, fuck what people think. Who cares? Like I genuinely don't. And I've said it before. It's such a great and powerful position to be in when you genuinely are just like, I don't fucking care. No. Go away. If you don't like what we're putting out, and it's maybe it's too positive for you, I don't know. Yeah. But if you don't like what we're saying, that's cool. Yeah. You can't be everything to everyone all the time. It's just it doesn't work that way. So I'm cool with that. But the part about just diving in is exactly what we're doing right now. And here we are 6 months in, and things are great for where we're at and the growth we're seeing. So I'm glad we got started, and that's key, just to start.
I do that with everything. So from that point on, I do that with everything. I just jump in and do it, and you do figure it out. It's the best piece of advice I ever got.
Cool. All right, last question.
Uh-oh.
And it is, if you feel you've lost your way, how do you find your way back?
Good one. So I would say even during this journey, I've definitely lost my way with some things. like fitness being probably the biggest one, right? One of my biggest things I would look to myself, be like, hey, I hold myself to this standard. And through all this stress, I can give all the excuses I want because they're literally just excuses. When you lose your way, just start again. Like I give that advice to that comp, right? Just you lose your way. It depends on whatever it is. I mean, it could be your moral compass, hopefully not, but even if it is, you lost your way, just get yourself back on the right path. Just start again. All right. You will, I do believe, since you've done things for so long, you're going to pick up that path faster and easier if you come off, because you have that proof, like this works.
Yeah.
You've stacked up that proof. So for me, that's literally what I've done. I've just recorrected. It's recalibration. Just hey, go back to this. This works. Stop letting this distract you. Stop letting X, Y, Z pull you off of what you were doing, and get back on track. So, and obviously, reaching out, like having God on your side, is you leaning to God. That's really going to help you get back onto whatever you may have gotten off of.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me, the way to get back from, feeling like you've lost your way, and the way to get back from that, I think it takes two huge things. And that's the first one. I think it takes humility. You really have to be able to look at yourself and show some humility and really identify, where you went wrong. What are the things that you did to, get yourself so far off track? And we're talking about, I would think we're talking about, if you feel like you've lost your way, it's pretty big. It's significant, it's substantial.
Fair point.
And I've definitely been there. Just a few years ago, I was there. Just like, who the fuck am I?
Yep.
And how did I get here? And it takes that humility of being like, okay, well, you did this, you did this, you did this. And then it takes the accountability factor, right? Owning all of that and, understanding that, I'm responsible for this. I lost my way because of the shit that I did.
Yep.
It wasn't these external factors. You can kind of pick your spots and say that certain things contributed if it makes you feel better.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, extreme ownership, like Jocko says, it's you own it all. And I think that's most important. And, that humility and that accountability. But to really get back, it's doing the things that we talk about on this podcast all the time. How do you get back? Well, you set standards for yourself and you decide what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. You create habits for yourself. What are you going to do? What are the things that you're going to do and implement on a daily basis and, enact in order to get to where you want to go? Third, you got to make sure you're executing on those things and you're doing the things and making those promises and keeping those promises that you made to yourself. And then lastly, I already called it accountability, right? Are you keeping up with those contracts that you made with yourself? And, are you doing those reassessments and recalibrations, on a daily or a weekly basis?
Yep.
And, really holding yourself accountable. Like, did I get better today? Did I get worse today? And if you got, better or worse in a particular day, either one of those is fine. But what's your plan of execution for tomorrow to get back on that path of, finding your way back, in accordance with the question?
And I think that reassessment's used to make sure you don't lose your way again. I think if you honestly give yourself like you said, you got to be honest with yourself. Reassessment, daily, weekly, whatever it is, and you do that all the time, I think that's a great way to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah. And when you really lose your way, it's, it's hard. It's fucking hard and it's embarrassing.
What's the first step? If you really lose your way, say you've really lost your way, what would be your first step to somebody like, hey, what do you do? Like, how do you stop the cycle? How do you stop the behavior?
Your first step is that humility. Like you got to take a pause, right? First. And then there's that humility. What did you do to cause this?
Love it.
Right? And it's hard to have that conversation with yourself. If you do it the right way and you've done something where you've lost your way, it's hard to have that conversation with yourself, and it fucking should be. And even though you're really only having it with yourself, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? To really have to think about yourself in that way.
Did you write it down in a journal or something? I put it on paper?
I did.
Think it helps?
I did. I did. Yeah. I have notes upon notes upon notes in my phone of everything. If anybody ever found my phone, they'd be able to read it for 6 months. It's like a journal, and it's so many things. But yeah, I have lists of this is what you did wrong. This is what you need to do to fix it. And for me, it was therapy. It was exercise. It was like all of these other things. To really get back and find your way back again, as the question is framed. But yeah, that's step number one, man. Humility. Have that hard discussion with yourself, or even a buddy. I've had that discussion with you. You know where I was and how I got there because I told you. So that's step one.
Yeah, great answer.
Yeah. Well, that actually, we only had, I think, 7-8 questions or something, but that took up some time.
Good.
I just first off want to say thank you for the questions. I'll be doing a lot of these Q&As. Hopefully we get more questions, more in depth with some certain things and more specific to what it is that you guys want to hear. And but yeah, no, thanks so much for engaging with us and asking us these questions. These are the types of things that Mike and I have been looking to do. We really want to engage with you guys as much as possible. And this is probably one of my favorite talks that we've had, just because it involves the things that are important to you guys as well. So thank you for those questions. We look forward to more, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.